I'm Lynne Swartz, and I'm the Executive Director at Parenting Now, formerly Birth to Three. How many people did Birth to Three or had families? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people have been around since 1978. I brought Linda King here with me, who is our past board president and current board member. So she can answer questions for you if you have them. We do parenting education and support, and we've been around since 1978. And it was started by Millie Sachs and Sue Kelly and Andy Fishhoff, who were doing an infant temperament study, and they found that none of the participants wanted to go home. All of these families would hang together for a long time, and what they were seeing there is what's still true today, is that families really need each other support for information, for modeling, for networking, and for that support in the middle of the night when you're trying to figure out what's going on with your kid. What we do since then, it's developed quite a bit more, is really what I consider primary prevention. So we're catching families early before things really go on that are a problem, and get them through the tough parts. We do that by offering that networking, by giving them support and best practices on child development. Leslie Finley's one a prior employee at Parenting Now who also is working on our curriculum that's for Make Parenting a Pleasure, which is one of the United Way funded programs that we do. We've got one starting in fall in Florence. So that's one of our programs, and that program in particular is for stressed families. And so those might be people who are dealing with just being very young and not having a lot of experience or support. Might be people who are dealing with substance use or mental illness. We also have a Spanish version of the program for people who are just figuring out our culture and who are up here. So that program has probably the longest funding history with United Way, and that goes throughout Lane County and is a really important program. We also have other programs. We have the First 3 Years program that's for more of a general population, and there's a lot of people who know us that way. I was a program family back in the day when my son was born. I didn't know anybody here in town who had kids, and I really still I'm not sure if I ever knew what I was doing, but they're grown up successfully by now. And it's a really useful way for families to get support and networking and information. You may have been hearing about the ACEs study. Has anyone heard of the Adverse Childhood Experiences study? Yeah, so that was a study that found that families, or I should say an individual who accumulates these problem things that happen. So maybe there was some neglect in the family, or maybe a parent was incarcerated, or maybe there was mental illness, or maybe there was substance use in the family, or maybe there's outright abuse and neglect. Those things add up in your brain, personality, and body, and go on to have long-lasting impacts for the rest of your life. And they're looking at outcomes like cancer and heart disease, because of the number of adverse childhood experiences that happen very young in life, and they call that toxic stress. And so the way we go after this is by really eliminating isolation, so families have information and a support, somebody to call when things are going on, as well as information about what is the right thing to do in a situation, in a given situation. And those all take on those adverse childhood experiences and try to extinguish or at least reduce them as much as possible. United Way has been a wonderful partner for at least 20 years with Parenting Now. Obviously, they helped with the Make Parenting a Pleasure groups. They also have helped us with some very current projects, one being the Triple P program that we're partnering with Trillium and ORI to do online programs, as well as physician-based interventions. One of my more favorite ones is we have a poster in the very back that I brought. It's a resource poster that our families, everybody who has a baby in any of our hospitals is going to get that as, there you go, this and larger ones that have all the resources for the families could ever need and have been going on for a long, long time. The hard copy poster was funded by the Active 2030, but with the help of United Way, we moved it online where everybody else is. So that's a really helpful kind of thing. So those are just a couple of the most recent projects that we've worked with. United Way, without United Way's funding, we wouldn't be able to do near the number of things that we're doing. The collaborations with Lane Kids and the fact that we get data from studies like the ALICE study that talk about income and what's going on with families and income and more. That helps us make data-driven decisions about what services to develop and so forth. So our partnership with Lane Kids is just really vital to not only doing what we do, but doing it better and doing it well. So we're very, very appreciative for that.
So thank you for spending your time with us today. We so appreciate it to get a chance to both talk about what United Way does for our community, but also to talk about our individual organizations. So I'm from Relief Nursery. I've been there about 3 years, but as Lynn referenced, I've been working in the community and parent support work for the last 25 years. And so Relief Nursery started in our community as a response to death, to children being abused and neglected in our community, and people knowing that there needed to be something done about this. And so we started as a crisis response respite care program. And out of that program, we've grown into the organization we are today. There are 31 locations of Relief Nurseries across the state, and they've all been modeled after Relief Nursery here in Eugene. So we have a site in Eugene and a site in Springfield. The nurseries all over the state are their own independent Relief Nursery organizations, but also doing the same work. So we're here to prevent child abuse and neglect, and to keep families together and keep them strong. So out of the crisis response and respite care program, we've grown based on the needs of families. So today we have programs that are the core program, which is home visiting program to assess what's going on with families, support them. We call that our outreach program. And in some cases, families just receive home visiting, and kind of we address what's going on in the family, help strengthen the parent-child relationship, make referrals, and on they go. But in most cases, they stay with us for much longer, continuing to get home visiting, and eventually moving on into our therapeutic early childhood program. And that's a program that has been supported by United Way for years and years. And in doing a little research, since I'm relatively new at Relief Nursery, Relief Nursery has been supported at United Way, predating all of those of us who work there. So this goes back over 25 years. We've been supported by the United Way. And that partnership has been critical. So currently we're funded to help the therapeutic early childhood program, and that's a program where children come in and receive classroom time with our interventionists working on social and emotional skills, and then parents also receive home visiting, parent and education support. To think about that program, I had been at this position for maybe a couple weeks, and I was working in my office one day, and I heard an announcement saying that could a Spanish speaker come to the front desk, and so the program supervisor for the therapeutic early childhood program went on out, and there was a parent with her 2 young children standing in the entryway, and she was recognized by the supervisor. They talked, oh, how's it going and everything. Well, this parent was in crisis. She'd been connected with us several years prior when her first child was a baby, and now she had 2 children, and she was coming back in, and she shared with the supervisor that she was afraid that she was going to harm herself or her children, and she drove herself to the Relief Nursery. She had been involved with us briefly, hadn't been ready for additional services and moved on, but when she was in crisis, she came back. And we found the person she'd worked with several years before, got them to come in and visit with his mom. We provided care for the children in another room while mom was able to sit with the outreach worker and talk about what was going on and make a safety plan for what she was going to do when she left our site. She left with a food box and some clothes for her children and a plan for what she was going to do moving forward. She re-engaged with services. Now she was really ready and engaged in the mental health program at Relief Nursery, and her child started attending the therapeutic early childhood program, and she's been with us in parenting classes as well. So 2 weeks into this job, I'd always heard about Relief Nursery. I always knew they were an amazing community partner when I was working elsewhere. But to see the ability to respond in the moment to somebody who was afraid of harming her children, I'm so thankful. I'm so thankful to all of you for the support that you give organizations like Relief Nursery, to the United Way, and amazed and really floored by what's possible. Those kinds of stories don't happen every day, but they happen a lot. And wow, is it profound to be able to step up and meet the need when a family is in crisis, or when a family just isn't doing very well in connecting and meeting the needs of their children, however much they want to. Substance abuse, mental health problems, instability, extreme poverty, they get in the way of meeting our kids' needs. And some support, both a food box, but also an ear and some education and support can really make a difference in parents getting where they want to be. So we've moved on to expand services as we've seen the need. So we also have a drug and alcohol recovery support program. So it's peer support workers who visit families in their home and go to community meetings with them, help them get treatment if that's what's needed, but also just help them in their sobriety. We have a Parents for Recovery support group that meets weekly. Amazingly, we've had a lot of dads showing up this year to that program, which is super fun to see them connect with each other, reduce isolation. And then in the evenings, we have parenting classes, Circle of Security, which is a attachment-focused parent class, and a counseling program. Trend we've seen is increased willingness or interest by the Spanish-speaking community to participate in counseling. So we've had a lot of success in the last year or two with bringing on Spanish-speaking therapists. We work with children both in the classroom setting, in their home, and on-site, and with their families, of course. And then we also are a site for the Healthy Families Program, home visiting program, intensive home visiting for 0 to 3, and we are a site for Preschool Promise, so one of the new early learning endeavors by the United Way and our hub to offer a mixed delivery preschool model to children 3 to 5 in our community who are at 2% or below poverty. And that's been an exciting, fun undertaking for us, and it's here at the Relief Nursery in Springfield.
200%.
200%.
You said
2%. Thank you. I'm like, 200, yes.
So my name is Paula Romo. I am the Executive Director of Downtown Languages. And Downtown Languages is a school that's here in Springfield. We just moved to a new location on C Street, 532 C Street. And we provide different classes, different programs for mostly adult immigrants, but we also work with the children and the families. So about maybe 20 to 25% of our programs are dedicated to working with Latino families, including children that are from 0 from birth to about 13 years of age. And so we provide English classes, citizenship preparation classes. We have bilingual computer classes in Spanish and English. We also have a possibility for adults to get their elementary and junior high education in Spanish if they couldn't go to school as children. When the need arises, we also have basic literacy classes for adults that couldn't go to school at all and cannot read or write. This happens a lot, sometimes among the indigenous communities of Latin America. They come here with very, very low levels or no levels of literacy. So we also do that sometimes. We have done in the past art workshops trying to promote the Latin American artists, the local Latin American artists, and just keep going on traditions that our families love to see that happening somewhere in town. And let's see. And then we also have a youth career transitioning program for Latino students that we do in partnership with Lynne Community College. And then I'll talk about United Way's involvement in all of these programs. But for me, I think I see a Downtown Languages, yes, it's a place where we provide educational services that are very important. But to me, the more important part really is providing a space for immigrants to be able to gather in a very low stress type of environment. sometimes you don't realize it. I mean, sometimes it's hard to know unless you have experienced this very directly in another culture, you have lived in another country for a substantial amount of time. You don't know how those stresses of being an immigrant really start to affect your well-being, and you start to become, I don't know, a little scared if you don't speak the language, and even if you speak it, like sometimes the cultural barriers create a lot of stress. Racism, whether it's aggressive or not aggressive, can also start to take its toll. Like little comments that are not, they don't come from a person that's mean or that wants to harm you, but a person that doesn't understand how she or he is diminishing you because of all the learning he or she has from racist type of structures can really take a toll. So I think when you come to a place like this where you don't have that, like somebody's not gonna think, like I remember my first job was at Fred Meyer as a cashier. There's nothing wrong with that, but of course I had bigger aspirations than doing the job. I wanted to go to the university. And then I remember a coworker telling me, you must be so happy and so grateful that you have this job. It's like, you must be so happy. And she kept going on, and I'm like, I'm not actually that happy with that. But you know, things like that are very, very common when you're an immigrant, a Latino immigrant in my case. Because people have this idea that all you will be able to accomplish is that much, and therefore they start putting that on you. And that creates a lot of stress. I mean, you don't realize it, but every day you get a little comment like that. And then for me, Downtown Languages provides that space where you don't get as many of those comments, or you know, people understand that you have dreams and you have other aspirations. And so that to me, I love creating that type of low stress environment, because I think when you are able to experience that for a time of your day, then you can face the rest of the culture more empowered, and actually, because that stress broke for a while, so you don't feel as fearful and you don't feel like, oh no, now who's going to tell me about, or how do I have to protect myself? So I really, really love that about our mission, and our students consistently tell us that they feel, oh, it's in my family, I come here, I make friends, people find out about jobs. They connect, they break away from isolation. Sometimes we have new families that are very, very isolated. So, you know, they start to make relationships that are very, very important for mental health. And so our family literacy program, PILAS, is one that United Way helped us fund. And it has been for many, many years, since before I got there. So I've been at Downtown Languages for 7 years. And this program has been there for 9 years. It started as a pilot with 60 individuals, 20 families, and it has grown to about 500 individuals or 160 families that we serve every year. So it's definitely, you can see that there's a big need. And also the Latino population has been growing too, so we get more and more students every year. People love it because I think it's very culturally sensitive, and we accommodate for a lot of the needs that Latino parents have, such as very unstable job schedules. Sometimes you might have a family that has a job for a month. They can come to class, well, they don't have the job, and then they get the job and they cannot come to class because obviously they have to go. So we allow for that, so it's a lot of flexibility for that. And also very, very bicultural, very bilingual. Almost every staff member is bicultural and bilingual, or at least very bilingual. So, and people understand, so our families feel very comfortable. I don't think we could have sustained this program for so long without the help of United Way, because it's been, giving us a lot of monetary resources, but on top of that, just a lot of research, a lot of the visibility in the community so that we are known by other agencies. To support every time, we had a work party that they helped us paint our new space. And it was fantastic because you did the best job of all the work parties that we had, so thank you so much. We had to paint every single room, so that was a big undertaking. And also they provide support for another program, the youth career transitioning program, where we help Latino kids that are in high school kind of figure out what they're going to be doing once they finish high school. And then it has a big component, that program, of deconstructing stereotypes, how you feel about yourself and why. Helping. It's hard to see sometimes Latino children, the Latino teenagers, they tell us in the evaluations. It's like, oh, I learned in this program that I can do anything I want, even though I'm Latino. Mm-hmm. So already these deeply embedded, internalized racism that they start to believe really that they are not going to be able to make it. So we need all this extra support to help mentally to figure out, why do you think that about yourself? Is there any other way that we can convince you to think of yourself differently and providing those support structures for that. And I think PILAS, probably the family programs are most successful program, and families come back sometimes even after 6 years. There's only a handful of those families that they say, it's my support system here. I don't want to stop coming because it's where I feel like I relax, and it's for mental health. Not so much they're already speaking English very fluently, and sometimes they come back and help us as volunteers, but they want to continue coming because it provides that shelter. And so, I think for me, just seeing that, that makes my day. To see a person with less stress and higher levels of mental health is a huge thing that we do. But we have helped a lot of people get this citizenship as well. And especially this last year, it's been very important. Our enrollment has doubled for the citizenship class because people want to become citizens in case anything happens. And so that also brings many other benefits, and a release of stress. I don't have to worry about that anymore. And so I hope that one of these days you'll come and visit us to our new location. And thank you so much to United Way for being such a great partner for all this.
The Kids in Transition to School program started out actually as a research program at the Oregon Social Learning Center, where we're a nonprofit institute, independent, where we do research to help strengthen children and families. And we have been interested for a while in helping children who might not have the advantages of children who get really high quality preschool and a lot of help from their parents in terms of early learning coming into school. We were working with children who were in foster care, so they had histories of maltreatment and perhaps had histories of neglect, where parents weren't able to spend the attention kind of thinking about numbers and letters when they were younger. We worked with children who had developmental disabilities and behavioral difficulties, who, again, have a kind of a harder road to walk than children who might be coming out of a more typical environment. And then most recently, with the help of United Way, we started working with schools within high poverty areas where children, again, when you have a parent who's working a couple of jobs or having to really struggle to keep the family together, may not have a lot of opportunity to do a lot of outside extracurricular activities. And again, while we have some fantastic, as you've heard, resources here in Lane County, many more than a lot of other places, they're not always able to bring every child into high quality childcare. Hopefully Preschool Promise and those kinds of things will change that. But what kids wanted to do was really capitalize on the period right before children go into school. So the summer, the 2 months of summer, July and August, before children start school, and then the first month of school after that transition, in order to really get children who might not have had the opportunities to really get good grounding and early literacy skills, but even more important, kids who might not have gotten good grounding in social skills and in the skills of just being able to sit still in a chair. I mean, we're all very good at that. You guys have that skill down well. But children coming into kindergarten for the first time who haven't had preschool experiences and who might have had a fairly chaotic early family life, like Lynn was talking about earlier, don't have those skills necessarily. And so being able to have kids get together in those 8 weeks before school starts, they work in groups of about 20 to 25, and we have the great luxury of having 3 teachers in a classroom. So we do early literacy lessons, as well as really talking about what social skills are. So what does sharing mean? What's it like to share with your friend? What does it look like? How do you do it? And then we have them go off and do an art project where you have 5 children at a table and just 1 pot of glue. And they have to figure out how to share that glue around. The nice part about having 3 teachers in a room is that the teachers can then drift around and really work. So nobody comes to blows, and everybody really works on how do you share? How do you ask your friend, can I have that pot of glue, or can I have that when you're done? And again, we also work on these kinds of skills that are called self-regulation skills, where children practice sitting still, they practice raising their hand, they practice waiting for their turn. We go from a circle time activity to an activity at the table, so they practice getting from one place to the other. quietly and with as little sort of drama as possible. So we really spend a lot of time working on those skills and having the children feel successful. So they get a lot of time to get high fives, to get reinforced for what they're doing, so that when children come through the door then that first day of kindergarten, instead of coming into an environment that's totally foreign, that really amps up their anxiety immediately, and then if there's other stuff going on in the home, just adds to what's already there, and then they just have a blowout, which is not a good way to start with either your teacher or your friends, or your friends to be on your first day. These kids can come in with a sort of been there, done that, I got this kind of attitude. And teachers say that they can see the kids. They can tell who's been in kits because they come in knowing what they need to do from the start. We also work with parents because we realize, like all of these folks that have been talking to, parents have a really hard task. And letting your child go off to school for the first time is really hard. And it's particularly hard if you didn't have a good time in school. And so if you already have some difficulties or some anxieties about school because of your own experiences, you're having your child go off into school, you might not have had a lot of time. Again, if families are struggling, not a lot of time to do a lot of extra stuff at home. So we talk about things like what can parents do that they're already doing, like setting the table, to eat in the evenings, counting out forks. Those are great experiences for children to have that really build on skills. So we talk about that kind of thing. We also talk about how to get ready for school in terms of how do you set up a morning routine so that people, you can get out of the house in the morning on time without losing socks and shoes behind you. And then we talk about how do you go, if you need to go into school, who do you talk to? How do you talk to them? How can you help your school personnel be your partners in getting ready for school? How can you become involved? And then we do what I call sneaky parenting, which is to do a lot of what these guys have been talking about, the kinds of skills that we teach to parents that we know from evidence and studies are really good for parents to have. Like, how do you teach your child a new skill and reinforce them and be really positive so that they really take that skill on? How do you work with your child when both of you have completely lost your temper to get it back and to get everybody to learn the self-regulatory skills that both of you need? So we do that within the context of talking about getting ready for school. And I call it sneaky parenting because sometimes it might be easier for parents to get started looking at parenting classes that way and then be willing to move on to other more in-depth things. So we really, truly, two-generational. And what United Way, when I say we were a baby, we were a program, we had some evidence, we do have evidence that the program works and that the effects last actually into third grade. Kids are still showing effects. We had that, but they were willing to put their confidence behind us and get us started in two school districts, the Springfield School District, and Bethel School District in Eugene. And so we started there with a relatively small pilot, working within those districts about 7 years ago. And since then, United Way has continued to help us grow. We've been down to South Lane, we've been out to Crestwell, so that at this point we're now in 13 districts in Lane County. This summer has been our biggest summer yet. We've been running 29 programs, which equals about 480 some children. And if you double that for parents, that's about 800 or 900 folks. We've been working with the schools so that their personnel are actually teaching the KITS groups. So lots of times kids will get to meet their kindergarten teacher 8 weeks before they start, or their EA. And then the EAs and the teachers who learn the program are able to take those teaching techniques back into their classrooms. So we've seen a lot of real positives. In fact, what we heard this year from the teachers who've been training, the teachers who come back, were saying that because of the techniques they learned with kids, they felt a lot less stress this past school year. So I like to think of us as focusing not only on families, but also helping teachers in schools, and it being a really good mutual partnership. So United Way has been excellent. I don't think we would have been able to do that kind of growth if we hadn't had their support all the way through, and the support of the schools, who are also our fabulous partners in this. And since I'm the last person, what struck me as I listened to folks up here talking, and from my own experience with United Way, is that they're excellent at providing a safety net for our most risky families. I mean, you think we start at zero here with Parenting Now. I'm really going to get over calling birth to three, but see, I did it when it's birth to three, and Relief Nursery, and then we can include all our families in the community with programs like PLOS and really work from 0 to 5. And I think they do just an excellent job of being able to weave together the different programs to really pull that net around our community.
I think that I hit upon the things that have been the most impactful for us, and that is around the funding of Make Parenting a Pleasure. So we get families there who get support who might not without that kind of funding. But one of the things I did leave off was one of the foundational programs that United Way funded with us, and that was a parent helpline, which was a telephone support program that, oh boy, how many years that was?
2002?
Yeah, so basically they funded so that when you called, somebody picked up. And we served all the way up into Multnomah County and a couple other counties up in that area and all of Lane County. And that was really a really huge impact with a small bit of funding, as it were. How that kind of thing reaches out into the community when basically it's just one call at a time. That's pretty huge.
And just it's my go-to place, really. Like whenever I have a doubt, or if like, oh, where else could I be looking for partnerships or funding or something for a program, you've always been there to provide a lot of ideas and materials, or even for planning classes.
You hear about other United Ways, they're not visible, and they're not doing the kinds of things that our United Way is doing. And I think that the other thing, in addition to being a hub, is that they've really been innovators. I mean, a few years ago, the reason that Kids was able to get this started is that they took on this idea of having promised neighborhoods in Eugene and Springfield, neighborhoods where they would really try to get programs that covered children from cradle to college. With the focus on the early learning, and they've been willing to look at different ways of funding. They were the first organization within the state of Oregon to receive a social innovation fund from the National Corporation for Community Service. Yeah, I can't ever get it right, but federally funded. So there are not many United Ways in the country, and certainly not many United Ways in the Pacific Northwest. No United Ways except for these guys. So having the ability to knit the community together, and then having a foresight to really plan for the future and what's that going to look like, I think we're incredibly lucky to have an organization that can do that in such a consistent and committed way. What I have again, it's that promised neighborhoods idea with covering kids from cradle to college. And, I know we're so blessed in this county to have such great programs that are out there that really can cover kids. It would be, if I had my aspiration, it would be, could we figure out a way where we get a family the minute they have a child, or even before, let's do prenatal care, and really be able to sort of move them sequentially through the great programs that are out there for them, so that they start with Parenting Now. If they need to, they would go to Relief Nursery or many of the other folks. If they were a family coming in from an immigrant family or a Spanish-speaking family that needed a service, and we were able to get them really seamlessly, because again, the programs we have are excellent. We're all together a lot of the time because of United Way, and to be able to really send them in that seamless way, I think would be like really capitalizing on the riches that we have.
Looking at that, do not forget it. I know that there's a lot of talk right now, and we're really, as a community, have engaged in a lot of discussions about what it is to be diverse, because Oregon is becoming more diverse. And also with that come problems and things that we didn't think we needed to address, or that we didn't think we thought about of other races or ethnicities in those ways. So just for me to not forget about that, because that will always be very important. I hear discussions about, it's better not to see color, and that way we all become one big community that nobody But I think given the historical, processes, we cannot do that, and I think I really appreciate that we continue to see it so that we can eventually, hopefully, I don't know if it's going to happen, but be that more united and needed type of community I would love to be part of and have. But I think in order to get there, we do need to have these discussions, and we do need to continue looking at those agencies or those programs that do work with the minorities, because they do need that extra boost.
My mind is something on a systems level, so it's not necessarily what service we provide, because I agree with Katherine. I mean, there are amazing services, and we kind of do, we know a lot about how to support families. One of the things that comes to my mind is how we can capitalize on what we know happens when children experience early adverse experiences. That we know the trajectory for these children without support for their families, without helping build resiliency, isn't good. Early death is the result of adverse childhood experiences. And so how do we look at this systematically and bringing in the medical community, our coordinated care organizations who will spend dollars on these families later, if not now. I think that as a nation, we've struggled with this for years and years around why do prevention work instead of intervention years down the lane, delaying them and looking at incarceration, medical, and death. And I don't mean to be overly dramatic, but the attention from the medical community in preventing what they will pay for, what our society will pay for, feels like a focus area that is still slightly untapped, and a huge opportunity to save money for society, but also to benefit families. And we know more about infant and early childhood mental health. We know that we can support children and families earlier, and it makes a difference. And all of these, there's just enough knowledge now, there's enough evidence that the case is compelling, and it would be fun locally to see what more we could do to strengthen that connection with our medical community, with our CCOs, to help them save money.
Where's the support for all the other pieces of raising a child? And I there's a lot of, well, I better not go there. One of the other things that, I know, you really got me there. One of the things that I think that the Triple P program is doing, and is something that's a really valuable thing that all fits into this overall thing, is making parenting education a norm. And it's what everybody can benefit from to some extent. And a lot of people think that they should know how to do this. And I think that a partnership with the medical community in particular to say, hey, have you signed up for, think about swim lessons and driver's license and all those things. Have you signed up for your parenting ed class yet? And have it be the positive thing that it is. It is fun. It makes your relationship better with your child. It makes your better relationship with your partner better. And that goes on your entire life. So if there was some way for us to reduce stigma around parenting education, make it the positive thing that it is, get support from all of the players, including the medical providers who continue to be referenced rightly as the go-to place, I think it would make a huge difference.